Useless old man, senile old man. Those two words exploded in my kitchen like a whip. I stood frozen in front of the stove, my hands shaking, staring at the burnt roast that was supposed to be our Sunday dinner. Smoke was still rising from the ceramic pot that my late wife, Carol, had given me for our 30th anniversary. At 73 years old, I had made the unforgivable mistake of falling asleep while preparing the favorite dish of my only son, Alex. "And I told you not to try cooking by yourself," Alex continued, his face twisted by a disproportionate rage. "You cannot even make a simple roast without turning it into charcoal." His wife, Patty, stood behind him, visibly uncomfortable, holding the hand of their daughter, Lily, my 4-year-old granddaughter, who was looking at me with wide, scared eyes. "I'm sorry," I muttered, feeling the weight of my clumsiness and my years fall onto my shoulders. "I just closed my eyes for a moment." "Just a moment. You could have burned down the whole house." He paused. "My house," he insisted, emphasizing the possessive, in a way that hurt me deeply. My house. Those words echoed in my mind like a painful reminder. This house in the suburbs, where Alex had grown up, where I had lived with Carol for 40 years, had become his house since my wife left us 3 years ago. At least, that was what Alex had explained to me. "We are going to order pizza," Patty announced with a soft voice, trying to calm the situation. "It is okay, Mr. Harris. Anyone can burn dinner." Alex let out a dismissive grunt and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my failure. I started to clean up the mess, scrubbing the blackened pot with tears in my eyes, not from the smoke, but from my son's words. How had we gotten here? I still remembered the boy with scraped knees, who looked at me with admiration when I came home from Lincoln High School, where I taught American history. That boy for whom I had sacrificed so many hours, so much of my savings so he could study at the state university and then at business school to become the brilliant financial director he was today. That boy had turned into a 45-year-old man who looked at me with disgust, as if I were a burden, a cumbersome old man who did not even know how to prepare a decent meal. Since Carol's death, things had changed drastically. Alex had insisted that I sell my house, arguing that I could no longer take care of it alone. "It is too big for you, Dad," he had said. "You could fall down the stairs and no one would notice for days." I ended up giving in, convinced that my son had my well-being in mind. The house was sold, and Alex explained that the money would be used to pay for a spot in a high-quality, assisted living facility for seniors, but that place never materialized. Instead, they moved me into a small room on the ground floor of what was once my own home. "It is more practical this way," Alex had explained. "We can take better care of you." Take care of me, as if I were a child or a pet that needed constant supervision. That night, lying in my narrow bed, I replayed the dinner scene, the humiliation I had felt in front of my granddaughter. Lily had seemed shocked by her father's words. After Alex's fury, she approached me timidly while I was cleaning. "Grandpa," she had whispered, "I think my dad was not being nice." I smiled sadly. "Your dad is just stressed from work, Lily. Do not worry." But it did matter. It was not the first time Alex had spoken to me like that. The harsh words, the dismissive looks, the exasperated sighs, they had become something common, and I had accepted them, convinced that it was the price of old age, that I should be grateful they allowed me to stay in the family home instead of being sent to a nursing home. The next morning I woke up early, as was my custom. Sleep had evaded me since Carol's death. I went to the kitchen to make coffee, tiptoeing so as not to wake the family. Passing by Alex's study, whose door was slightly ajar, I noticed the light was still on. Curious, I stepped closer. Alex must have forgotten to turn it off before going to sleep. I gently pushed the door with the intention of turning off the lamp, when my eyes were drawn to documents scattered across the desk. I'm not naturally nosy, but a name on one of the papers caught my attention. Mine, Robert Harris. I stepped closer, my heart beating heavily. It was a bank statement, but not from the checking account that Alex managed for me, since, according to him, I had memory problems. No, it was an account I did not know about at Chase Bank, with a balance that made me stumble. Almost $1 million. Next to that statement was another document, the deed of sale for my house. I adjusted my glasses in disbelief at the amount indicated. $1.8 million. Over $1.8 million for this house where I had lived almost all my adult life. Alex had told me it sold for $1.1 million, and that after paying off the small mortgage I had left and the closing costs, there was only $800,000 left for the senior home. My hands were shaking as I examined other papers, investment statements I knew nothing about, documents regarding a life insurance policy taken out by Carol, of which I was the beneficiary, but from which I had never seen a dime. Regular transfers from these accounts to Alex and Patty's accounts, major purchases, a beach house in Miami, a brand new BMW, trips to Europe. The room spun around me. My own son was stealing from me. Since Carol's death, he had managed my affairs, pretending to do it for my own good, but in reality he was siphoning my money, making me believe I was poor, dependent on his generosity. I do not know how long I stood there, paralyzed by the shock and betrayal. The sound of footsteps on the stairs brought me back to reality. I quickly put the documents back in their place and left the study, heading to the kitchen as if nothing had happened. Alex appeared a few minutes later, already dressed for work despite the early hour. "What are you doing up so early?" he asked, surprised to see me. "I could not sleep," I replied, trying to control the tremor in my voice. "I was going to make coffee." He watched me closely, as if trying to detect something in my behavior. "Let me do it. The last time you touched the coffee maker, you spilled water everywhere." I nodded meekly, sitting at the kitchen table while he made the coffee. My mind was racing, trying to process what I had just discovered. How could my own son, whom I had raised with love and values, betray me like this? How could he strip me of everything Carol and I had built together, reducing me to a dependent old man when I was actually a man with resources? "You look worried," Alex observed, handing me a cup of coffee. "Did you sleep badly?" "I had strange dreams," I replied, avoiding his gaze. "Dreams about your mother, about the house." "Maybe you should increase your sleeping pill," he suggested with a concern that now seemed fake to me. "I will call the doctor today." The doctor, another person I never saw directly, whom Alex always spoke to in private. How many unnecessary medications was I taking based on his recommendations? How many fabricated diagnoses had he used to justify his control over my finances, my life? "That is not necessary," I said. "I'm fine." "You do not look fine," he insisted, placing a hand on my forehead, as if I were a child with a fever. "You are pale." Of course I was pale. I had just discovered my son had been robbing me for 3 years. "I'm fine, Alex," I repeated more firmly. "Do not worry about me." He seemed surprised by my tone, but did not push it. After finishing his coffee, he gathered his things. "I will be home late tonight," he announced. "I have an important meeting with clients. Patty will make you dinner." He paused. "Do not touch the stove, okay?" "Okay," I promised with a feigned obedience that made me nauseous. As soon as Alex left the house, I started to think. I needed to act, but carefully. Alex was an influential man, respected in his circle, while I was just a retired old teacher whom even my own son described as senile. Patty and Lily came down for breakfast shortly after. Patty, unlike Alex, had always treated me with kindness, but now I wondered if she was an accomplice to these embezzlements, or simply ignorant. "Good morning, Mr. Harris," she greeted me with her usual smile. "Did you sleep well?" "Not very well," I admitted. "Patty, I was wondering, would it be possible for you to take me to the bank today? I have not checked my account in a long time." Her expression changed subtly. A flash of concern crossed her eyes. "Oh, Alex takes care of all that. You know that." "Why do you want to go to the bank?" "I would just like to see how my savings are doing," I said, with a smile I hoped looked innocent. At my age, one worries about these things. I understand, but Alex says it is not good for you to worry about money. You already know he handles everything. Of course he handled everything, especially lining his own pockets. You're right, I conceded. It was just an idea. She looked relieved, which confirmed my suspicions. Patty knew, at least partly. How could she ignore where the money came from for her luxurious lifestyle, for the beach house in Miami, for the BMW in her garage? Lily, my granddaughter, came over to me after breakfast. Grandpa, are you sad because of what Daddy said yesterday? No, my sweetheart, I lied. I just slept badly. Daddy says grandpas get grumpy when they do not sleep well. Your dad is right about that, I replied, suppressing the bitterness growing inside me. When Patty left to take Lily to school, I took my chance. I needed help, but not just from anyone. I needed someone I could trust, someone Alex could not intimidate or manipulate. I thought of my old friend, Fred Miller. We had taught together for 30 years at Lincoln High School. He taught chemistry, I taught history. After our respective retirements, we had continued seeing each other regularly, playing chess in Central Park, discussing literature and politics. But since Carol's death and my forced move to Alex's house, our meetings had become sparse until they stopped completely. Alex always had an excuse to prevent me from seeing him. I was too tired, the weather was bad, Fred was busy. I went to my room and looked for my old address book. Fred had a landline just like me. I dialed his number, praying he would be home. Hello? Fred's deep, familiar voice resonated through the receiver. Fred, it is Robert. Robert Harris. Robert! Good heavens, it has been an eternity. I was beginning to think you had forgotten about me, old friend. Never, my friend. It is just that things have gotten complicated. Is your son still not letting you out? Fred asked with an ironic tone that made me realize he had always been suspicious of my situation. It is much worse than that, Fred. I need your help. There was a silence on the other end of the line. Fred had always been perceptive. What is going on, Robert? I cannot talk on the phone. Could you come see me today, if possible? Alex is at work. Patty took Lily to school and will not be back until noon. I am on my way, he said simply. Give me an hour, buddy. After hanging up, I had an idea. I sneaked back into Alex's study. I needed proof. With shaking hands, I took my cell phone, the one Alex had given me for emergencies and that I barely knew how to use, and started taking pictures of the compromising documents. The bank statement, the house deed, the transfers, everything that proved my son's fraud. Once I finished this task, I meticulously put everything back in its place and returned to my room to wait for Fred. Fred arrived exactly an hour later, just as he had promised. When I opened the door, I was struck by his appearance. Still upright and elegant, despite his 75 years, his white hair impeccably combed, his sharp gaze behind his metal-framed glasses. He looked at me with concern. Robert, buddy, you look exhausted. Come in quickly, I muttered, casting a nervous glance toward the street. Patty could return at any moment. Once in my small room, I told Fred everything. Carol's death, the forced sale of my house, Alex's lies about my mental health, and my discovery this morning. I took out my phone to show him the pictures of the documents. Fred listened without interrupting me, his expression shifting from concern to contained anger. When I finished, he put a hand on my shoulder. Robert, what your son has done is criminal. It is a breach of trust, fraud. He must answer for his actions. But how? I asked desperately. Who is going to believe a supposedly senile old man over a respected financial director? Fred thought for a moment. I have a nephew, Gabe. He is a lawyer specializing in elder law. He can help you. But first, we need to get you to safety. Safety? Yes. If Alex finds out that you know, he might intensify his efforts to control you. You cannot stay here. I thought about that sleeping pill Alex wanted to increase, about that doctor I never saw, and a shiver ran down my spine. Where could I go? With me, of course, Fred stated as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I've had a guest room waiting for you ever since Rose left us. Rose, his wife, had passed away a year before Carol. Our two couples had been friends for decades. But my things, my medications, we will only take what is necessary. As for the medications, Gabe knows a trusted doctor who can examine you and determine what you really need. The idea of leaving my room, even though it was only a pale shadow of what my home used to be, terrified me. But the alternative, staying under the control of a son who stole from me and despised me, was worse. Okay, I agreed, but Patty will be back soon. Then let's make this quick. Pack a suitcase with your clothes and whatever is valuable to you. I am going to call Gabe to meet us at my place. In less than 20 minutes, I had gathered my essential belongings. Some clothes, my medications, my spare glasses, and the portrait of Carol that I kept on my nightstand. I did not have much else that truly belonged to me in this house that was once mine. Before leaving, I left a note on my bed. I went for a walk. I will be back for dinner. Robert. Fred was waiting for me in his car, a well-kept old sedan. When I got into the passenger seat, I felt a mix of fear and relief. For the first time in 3 years, I was making a decision for myself. I was taking back control of my life. Are you sure you want to do this? Fred asked me, sensing my hesitation. Yes, I replied, with a firmer voice. I cannot live like this anymore. We drove out of the suburbs toward downtown, where Fred lived in an apartment near Central Park. During the ride, I thought about Lily, my granddaughter. My chest ached at the thought of leaving her, but I promised myself it would only be temporary. Once my situation was resolved, once my rights were restored, I could reunite with her in a healthier way, without Alex's toxic mediation. Fred's apartment was cozy, filled with books, travel souvenirs, and photographs. There were several of Rose, his wife, but also of our two couples together during shared vacations in Florida or California and Nevada. The guest room is right this way, Fred told me, carrying my modest suitcase. It is not very big, but it is your home for as long as you need it. The room was small but bright, with a window overlooking a quiet courtyard, a twin bed, a wardrobe, a desk, and a bookcase filled with books. Simple but welcoming. It is perfect, Fred. Thank you. Do not thank me. It is what friends do. Now sit down. Gabe will be here in an hour. Meanwhile, I am going to make us some lunch. For the first time in a long time, I ate without feeling the weight of Alex's judgment, without fearing I would make a mistake that would unleash his anger or contempt. Fred and I talked about the old days, about our students who had grown into adults, some illustrious, others ordinary, but all of them had marked our lives as teachers. Gabe arrived exactly an hour later. He was a man in his 40s with the same sharp eyes as his uncle, but with a professional gravity that inspired confidence. Mr. Harris, he greeted me, shaking my hand. My uncle briefly explained your situation to me. I am very sorry for what you are going through. Please call me Robert. All right, Robert, he corrected with a warm smile. Could you tell me everything from the beginning? And if you have proof, it would be helpful. For over an hour, I told Gabe everything, showing him the pictures I had taken of the documents in Alex's study. Gabe took notes, occasionally interrupting me to ask for clarifications. When I finished, he outlined the situation. What your son has done is clearly criminal, he confirmed, echoing Fred's words. Breach of trust, embezzlement, forgery of documents. We have enough evidence to initiate proceedings, but I must warn you, it will not be easy. Your son has likely covered his tracks, and he might use your age and your supposed mental frailty against you. I am ready, I said, determination replacing the fear. I want to recover what belongs to me, and more importantly, I want my dignity back. Gabe nodded approvingly. Here is what we are going to do. First, we will request a full medical evaluation to establish that you are perfectly capable of managing your own affairs. Then we will contact Chase Bank to report the fraud and freeze all the accounts that Alex has access to. Simultaneously, we will file a complaint with the district attorney for breach of trust and embezzlement. And what if Alex claims that I consented to all this? I asked, worried. Do you have any documents signed by you authorizing these transactions? I do not know. I never consciously signed such documents. If he forged your signature, it is a serious felony which worsens his case. If you have documents that you signed without understanding their content, we could allege breach of trust, especially if we prove that he intentionally isolated you and made people believe you were mentally impaired. Gabe continued explaining the legal strategy, and for the first time since Carol's death, I felt true hope reborn inside me. I was not alone. I had allies, and more importantly, I had the truth on my side. Meanwhile, in the suburbs, I could imagine Patty coming home, finding my note, and calling Alex in a panic. I could almost hear his fury, his concern, not for my well-being, but for the consequences of my disappearance. What would happen if I talked to someone, if I revealed what he had done? The cell phone Alex had given me started ringing in my pocket. On the screen, Patty's name was flashing. Gabe motioned for me not to answer. Not yet, he said. Let's put our legal protections in place first. Tomorrow, once we have consulted the doctor and started the proceedings, you can talk to them, but not directly. Everything will have to go through me. I nodded, letting the phone ring until it stopped. A few seconds later, a message arrived. Dad, where are you? We are worried. Come home immediately. I showed it to Gabe, who nodded. Classic. He is trying to make you feel guilty. Do not respond. The phone rang several more times over the next hour, alternating between Patty and Alex. I ignored all the calls, following Gabe's advice. Tomorrow will be a busy day, Gabe announced, standing up to leave. I will come pick you up at 9 for the medical appointment. Then we will go to the bank in the precinct. Try to rest, Robert. You are going to need all your strength. After he left, Fred made me a simple but delicious dinner, some grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, and a bit of fresh salad. We ate in silence, sharing a bottle of aged bourbon that Fred had opened for the occasion. To liberation, he toasted, raising his glass. To justice, I replied, feeling the emotion tighten my throat. That night, lying in the guest room bed, I reflected on everything that had happened. How Alex, whom I had raised with so much love, had turned into this cruel and greedy man. Had he always been like this and I just had not seen it? Or had he transformed over the years, money and ambition corrupting his heart? I remembered his kindness when he was a boy, his curiosity, his easy laugh. I remembered the studious teenager, determined to succeed but always respectful and loving. When did the change happen? When did he start seeing me not as his father, but as an obstacle, a resource to exploit? These unanswered questions accompanied me into a restless sleep, filled with dreams where Carol called out to me, trying to warn me of a danger I could not see. The next morning, Gabe arrived right on time as promised. He was accompanied by a woman in her 50s, whom he introduced as Dr. Reynolds, a geriatrician and medical expert. Dr. Reynolds is going to examine you, Gabe explained. Her evaluation will be crucial to counter any claims from your son regarding your mental health. The examination was thorough, but respectful. Dr. Reynolds tested my memory, my orientation, my judgment, my decision-making capacity. She also reviewed the list of medications I was taking, frowning as she read the prescriptions. Robert, these sedatives and anti-anxiety pills are prescribed in unusually high doses for a person your age with no psychiatric history. Who is the doctor treating you? I do not know, I admitted, embarrassed. Alex always arranges my medical appointments, and I never see the doctor directly. He just tells me which medication to take. Dr. Reynolds and Gabe exchanged a meaningful look. I'm going to adjust these prescriptions immediately, the doctor stated. These doses could explain your fatigue, your occasional confusion, and even certain tremors. A new shock ran through me. Alex had not been satisfied with stealing from me. He had deliberately drugged me to make me more docile, to reinforce the image of the senile father he presented to the world. After the exam, Dr. Reynolds wrote a detailed report, concluding that I was perfectly capable of managing my affairs, that my memory and judgment were intact, and that the symptoms of confusion I might have exhibited were likely due to the inappropriate medications I was taking. Armed with this report, Gabe and I went to the Chase Bank branch, where the account I had discovered was held. The branch manager received us in his office after Gabe explained the situation. "Mr. Harris, it is a pleasure to finally meet you." The manager greeted me. He was a man in his 50s, in an impeccable suit. "Your son always told us you were too sick to come in person." "As you can see, I am perfectly fine," I replied, trying to control my anger. "I would like a complete statement of all the accounts under my name at your institution, as well as the transaction history for the last 3 years." The manager looked uncomfortable. "I understand, but your son has power of attorney over all your accounts. Legally, he has the right to—" "That power of attorney may be fraudulent," Gabe interrupted, placing the medical report and the photos of the documents in front of the manager. "We have reason to believe that, Mr. Alex Harris has abused his father's trust and potentially forged documents to obtain that power. We are filing a police report today, but in the meantime, we request an immediate freeze on all accounts." The manager examined the documents, his expression shifting from surprise to concern. "I see. This is a very delicate situation. I'm going to consult with our legal department immediately." After half an hour of discussions and phone calls, the manager returned with a stack of documents. "Here is the statement for all your accounts, Mr. Harris. We are going to proceed with a temporary freeze on the accounts until the situation is clarified. We will need your signature on several documents." I signed everything he presented to me under Gabe's watchful supervision, who read every line before allowing me to put my signature on it. Meanwhile, the manager prepared a temporary debit card linked to a small savings account that Alex apparently had not discovered, containing about $5,000. "For your current expenses," the manager explained, "the rest will remain frozen until the investigation is resolved." Our next stop was the district attorney's office downtown. Gabe presented our case to a prosecutor who took my statement with professionalism and attention. "This kind of abuse is unfortunately becoming more common," he commented while taking notes, "especially with isolated elderly people. You did the right thing by coming in, Mr. Harris." After formalizing the complaint, the prosecutor gave us a receipt and assured us that an investigation would be opened quickly. "Considering the amounts involved and the nature of the accusations, this matter will be taken very seriously," he promised. "We will contact Mr. Alex Harris in the next few days to question him." Leaving the DA's office, I felt exhausted but relieved. For the first time in years, I had the feeling that justice was possible, that the truth could triumph. "What is going to happen now?" I asked Gabe while we had coffee at a diner near the precinct. "Now we wait," he replied. "The detectives will investigate, question your son, examine the evidence. It may take time, but we have made a good start. In the meantime, you stay with my uncle. Safe. And Alex? What will he do when he finds out?" Gabe took a sip of his coffee, reflecting on his answer. "He will probably be furious, then he will panic. He might try to contact you directly to convince you to drop the charges. That is why it is crucial that you have no contact with him, except in my presence." At that moment, my cell phone rang again. It was Alex, probably for the 20th time. This time, following Gabe's advice, I answered and put it on speakerphone. "Dad!" Alex's voice was a mix of rage and relief. "Where on earth are you? It has been 24 hours since you disappeared." "Hello, Alex," I replied calmly. "I am fine. Thank you for worrying. Where are you? Come home immediately." "I cannot do that, Alex. I know about the money, about everything." There was a silence on the other end of the line, so long I thought he had hung up. Then his voice returned, suddenly soft, almost pleading. "Dad, I do not know what you are talking about. If someone has put ideas in your head—" I saw the documents, Alex, I interrupted. The bank statement, the deed of sale for the house, the transfers. I saw it all. Another silence, then a complete change of tone. You went into my study. You went through my things. I discovered the truth. That is the only thing that matters. Listen, Dad. His voice was now calculating, manipulative, just as I had heard it so many times when he spoke with his colleagues on the phone. There's an explanation for all this. I was saving that money for you for your own good. You are not in any condition to... Gabe signaled me to pass him the phone. Mr. Harris, this is Gabe Miller, attorney at law. I represent your father in this matter. Any future communication must go through my office. For your information, your father has filed a formal complaint for breach of trust and embezzlement, and all related accounts have been frozen. I strongly suggest you consult a lawyer. Who are you? Alex roared. How dare you meddle in my family's business? I am your father's lawyer, and I am doing my job. Good day, Mr. Harris. Gabe hung up, handing me back the phone with a reassuring smile. That was perfect. Now he knows you are serious and that you have legal support. The phone immediately started ringing again, but this time it was Patty. Gabe indicated that I could answer if I wanted to. Robert? Patty's voice was tense, worried. Are you okay? We were so worried. I am fine, Patty. I am with friends. Alex is furious. He says you called the police, that you are accusing him of stealing. What is going on? I hesitated, not knowing how involved Patty was in Alex's actions. Patty, I cannot talk about it right now, but tell Lily that I love her very much and that I will see her soon. Robert, please, she insisted, her voice breaking. If Alex did something wrong, I need to know. Did you really not know? I asked in disbelief. Know what? Alex handles all our finances. He gives me an allowance for the house and for myself. I never see the accounts. I exchanged a look with Gabe, who shrugged, letting me decide. The house did not sell for $1.1 million, Patty. It sold for over $1.8 million, and that is just the beginning. Alex has embezzled all the inheritance Carol left me. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Millions. I heard her breath hitch, then a muffled sob. Oh my God, Robert. I did not know. I swear I did not know. I believe you, Patty. What is going to happen now? With the police? With us? I do not know. It is in the hands of the justice system now. Take care of Lily. Do not leave her alone with Alex, especially if he is angry. Okay, her voice was barely audible. I'm so sorry, Robert. So sorry. After hanging up, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Patty might not have been an active accomplice, but her willful blindness had contributed to my situation, and now she and Lily were also going to suffer the consequences of Alex's actions. Do you think she is telling the truth? Asked Gabe. That she did not know? I think she knew something was not right, but she chose not to ask questions. Sometimes it is easier not to know. Gabe nodded thoughtfully. It is human nature, unfortunately, but that does not change your son's responsibility. We returned to Fred's place, where he was waiting for us impatiently. I told him about the day's events, the support from the bank and the district attorney, Alex's reaction, Patty's confusion. You showed great courage, Robert, Fred congratulated me, pouring me a glass of bourbon. Many in your situation would have given up, would have accepted their fate. I was ready to do it, I admitted. For 3 years I believed that was all I deserved, that I was nothing more than a useless old man who should be grateful they allowed him to keep existing. That is what abusers do, Gabe commented. They make you believe you deserve the treatment they give you, that it is normal, that it is for your own good. That night I went to bed with mixed feelings of pride and apprehension. What would Alex do now? How far would he go to protect his lies, his lifestyle built on my stolen fortune? The next morning I was woken up by the ring of my phone. It was the prosecutor we had met the day before. Mr. Harris, I am calling to inform you that your son showed up at the precinct this morning, accompanied by his lawyer. He was questioned regarding your accusations. And? I asked, my heart racing. He denies everything, of course. He claims you gave your consent for all the transactions, that you suffer from cognitive issues that affect your memory, and that this complaint is the result of manipulation by malicious friends. Obviously, I sighed. What does that mean for the investigation? We are still gathering evidence. We have requested all documents related to your accounts from the bank, particularly the powers of attorney and the signed transfer orders. A handwriting expert will examine the signatures. If they were forged, it will be a major piece of evidence against your son. And if they were not forged? If I signed documents without understanding what I was signing? That is why the medical report is crucial. It establishes that you are currently capable of making decisions which cast doubt on your son's claims about your past mental state. Furthermore, if we can prove that you were deliberately over-medicated. I understand. Thank you for the information. After hanging up, I reported the conversation to Gabe and Fred, who were having breakfast in the kitchen. That is exactly what I expected, Gabe said. Alex is going to try to paint you as a confused old man, manipulated by strangers. But we have solid evidence, and the truth will come out eventually. The phone rang again. This time it was a number I did not know. Mr. Harris? A professional unknown voice. I am Chloe Vance, a journalist from the Daily News. I heard about your complaint against your son, the financial director, Alex Harris, for embezzlement. Would you agree to answer some questions? It took me by surprise. How had a newspaper found out about this so quickly? Gabe signaled me to hang up. Do not talk to any journalists without my authorization, he warned me after I ended the call. The case is starting to leak, which is both good and bad. Good because it puts pressure on Alex. Bad because it could influence the judicial process. But how did they find out? I asked, perplexed. Journalists have sources in the police, in the courts. Or maybe it was Alex himself who contacted the press to control the narrative. That possibility made my blood run cold. Knowing my son, he was fully capable of turning this into a pitiful story about a confused old man, manipulated by greedy friends. And with his position, his charisma, many would believe him. Do not worry, Gabe reassured me, sensing my anxiety. We have the truth on our side, and in the end, that is what counts. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Gabe arranged a meeting with a family court judge to counter any attempt by Alex to put me under guardianship. Dr. Reynolds testified about my full mental capacity, and the judge rejected the preventative request we had anticipated. Meanwhile, the district attorney's investigation was moving forward. The handwriting expert had determined that several signatures on key documents were fake, and the doctor who supposedly prescribed my medications had no record of me in his office. Alex had apparently used his connections to get prescriptions without a real consultation. A week after my escape from Alex's house, Gabe received an unexpected proposal from my son's lawyer, an out-of-court settlement. He is offering to return $50,000 immediately and pay you a monthly pension of $5,000 for the rest of your life in exchange for dropping all charges, Gabe explained as we sat in his office. That is ridiculous, I replied, feeling the anger rise. He stole much more than that. Of course, Gabe agreed. This offer is an insult, and it confirms his guilt. We are going to reject it, but it shows he is starting to worry. What is happening with his job? I asked, curious to know if this affair had impacted Alex's brilliant career. I heard he was placed on administrative leave during the investigation. The bank he works for does not want to be associated with a financial abuse scandal, especially coming from one of their financial directors. I felt no satisfaction at this news, only a deep sadness. Alex had had everything, a brilliant education, a prestigious job, a loving family. Why had he needed to steal from me, degrade me, treat me like less than nothing? Gabe's phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. He listened carefully, then looked at me with a grave expression. That was the detectives. Alex was arrested this morning. During a search of his office, they found documents proving that not only did he steal from you, but he also embezzled funds from the bank. Apparently, your complaint opened a Pandora's box. I closed my eyes, feeling a dizzy spell take over me, my son, my Alex, arrested like a common criminal. Despite everything he had done to me, I could not help but feel pain for him, for his wife, for my granddaughter who would have to live with this shame. What is going to happen now? I asked in a weak voice. He will likely be prosecuted for several crimes: breach of trust, forgery, embezzlement. He is facing considerable prison time, Robert. I am sorry. I returned to Fred's place that afternoon with a heavy heart. I told him the latest developments, and he listened to me in silence, respecting my pain. You have nothing to reproach yourself for, Robert, he finally said. You did not choose this path. It was Alex who made his decisions, not you. I know, I replied, but he is my son. I raised him. Where did I fail for him to become this man? You did not fail, Fred insisted. Some people make bad choices despite the best upbringing, the best love. Alex chose greed and dishonesty. That is not your fault. That night, unable to sleep, I went over all those years when I had raised Alex, especially after Carol passed away. All those times I had sacrificed my own needs for his, when I had worked long hours to offer him the best opportunities. How could all of that end in a prison cell? The next morning I received a call from Patty. Her voice was broken with crying. Robert, I'm so sorry. I knew nothing. Not about the money, not about the medications, not about anything. Alex lied to me, too. How is Lily? I asked, more concerned about my granddaughter than anything else. She is confused, scared. She does not understand why her dad was taken away by the police. I do not know what to tell her. Tell her the truth at her level, that her dad did something bad, and he has to answer for it, but that it does not change the love we have for her. Robert, Patty hesitated. Could you come see us? Lily misses you a lot, and I need to apologize in person. I consulted with Gabe, who approved the visit on the condition that it took place in a public place, away from Alex's house where there could be documents or evidence important to the investigation. We agreed to meet at City Park, a place Lily loved to go. Upon arriving with Fred, who had insisted on accompanying me, I saw Patty and Lily sitting on a bench near the lake. Patty looked exhausted, with deep dark circles and a pale face. Lily, on the other hand, lit up when she saw me. Grandpa! She ran toward me and hugged me with surprising strength for a girl her age. I missed you so much. Why did you leave? I just needed a little time, my sweetheart, I explained, kneeling down to her level. But I missed you very much, too. Patty approached with tears in her eyes. Robert, Later, I said softly. First, let's spend some time with Lily. We spent the afternoon enjoying the park. Fred turned out to be an enthusiastic playmate for Lily, despite his age. For a few hours, we could forget the drama that was unfolding, the legal proceedings, the arrest, the lies. We were just a grandpa, a granddaughter, and two adults caring for her, enjoying a beautiful autumn afternoon. When Lily went off with Fred to the playground rides, Patty took the opportunity to talk. I cannot believe I was so blind, she began, her eyes fixed on her daughter in the distance. All these years, Alex told me you had memory problems, that you were getting confused, that you needed our supervision, and I accepted it all without question. You trusted your husband, I said without resentment. It is natural. But I should have seen the signs, the way he spoke to you, the medications, the fact that he never left you alone with me or Lily for very long. I chose not to see. And now, I asked, curious to know how she envisioned the future. Patty sighed deeply. I do not know. Alex's lawyer says he might be released while awaiting trial, but I am not sure I want him to come home, not after everything I have learned. Are you considering divorce? Maybe, she admitted. I can no longer trust him, Robert. He abused you, his own father. How could I be sure he would not do the same to Lily or me if we became an obstacle to his ambitions? I nodded, understanding her perspective perfectly. Robert, I also wanted to ask you about the house. I know it was yours, that it should have remained yours, but Lily and I have nowhere to go right now. Do not worry about that, I reassured her. Whatever the outcome of this matter, I am not going to leave you two out on the street. That house has been our family home for decades. It must stay in the family. The relief on her face was palpable. Thank you, Robert. I do not know how I will ever repair the damage that has been done, but I promise you I will do everything so that Lily grows up knowing you, respecting what you have gone through and understanding the value of honesty and dignity. After our day at City Park, I returned to Fred's place with a new perspective. Despite the pain of the betrayal, despite the suffering of seeing my son fall so low, I was beginning to glimpse a future where I could rebuild a relationship with my granddaughter, where I could reclaim my place in what was left of my family. 2 days later, Gabe called me with important news. Robert, the judge decided to hold Alex in pretrial detention. The charges against him are serious, and there is a risk he might destroy evidence if he is released. I see, I murmured, conflicting emotions overwhelming me once again. There's something else. The bank agreed to unfreeze all your accounts. The judge ordered the restitution of all the embezzled funds identified so far. You are going to recover a large part of your assets, Robert. A wave of relief washed over me, not so much for the money itself, but for the official recognition of the damage they had done to me, for the restoration of my dignity. And the house? I asked, thinking of the promise I had made to Patty. It is more complicated, Gabe admitted. Alex sold it legally, even though it was based on forgeries. We will have to start a separate procedure to try to annul the sale, but that will take time. Who is the current owner? Here is where it gets interesting. The house was purchased by a corporation of which Alex is the administrator. Essentially, he sold the house to himself, or rather to his company, probably to launder the money or evade taxes. It is an additional element against him, but it also means the house could be seized as part of the judicial process. I reflected for a moment. Is it possible to buy that corporation? To recover the house legally? Gabe looked surprised. Theoretically, yes. But why would you want to do that? We have a good chance of recovering the house through the courts. I do not want to wait for years, Gabe. I want to resolve this matter now for Lily and Patty. They need stability. Gabe promised to explore that option, and weeks later, an agreement was reached. With part of the recovered funds, I was able to buy the corporation that owned the house, thus legally becoming the owner of what had always been my home. On the day the documents were signed, I invited Patty and Lily to eat at a restaurant near Fred's place. After the meal, I took the papers out of my briefcase and handed them to Patty. "What is this?" she asked, perplexed. "A lease agreement," I explained. "I'm the owner of the house again, but I want you and Lily to live there for as long as you need. This document gives you the right to live there for the next 30 years, in exchange for a symbolic rent of $1 a year." Patty burst into tears, unable to speak, while Lily looked at me with confusion. "Why is Mommy crying?" she asked. "Because she is relieved, my sweetheart," I explained. "You two get to stay in your house." "And what about you, Grandpa? Are you going to come back and live with us?" I looked at Patty, who nodded through her tears. "Yes, Lily, I am going to return, but not right away. First, I have to take care of a few things, and then we will see. But I promise you we will see each other very often." Over the following months, my life took a new direction. I moved into a small apartment near City Park, not far from Fred, but I spent almost every weekend in the suburbs with Lily and Patty. Together, we began to heal the wounds caused by Alex's lies and betrayal. My son's trial took place a year after my hasty exit from that smoke-filled kitchen, where he had called me a senile old man. He was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to 8 years in prison, of which he would have to serve a minimum of 6. The sentence could have been more severe, but I had asked for leniency, not for Alex, but for Lily, who would one day need to understand and perhaps forgive her father. On the day of the verdict, As we were leaving the courthouse, a journalist approached me. "Mr. Harris, how do you feel after this sentencing? Are you satisfied with the justice that was served?" I looked at the woman, then thought about everything that had happened since that burnt dinner, about everything I had discovered, lost, and recovered. "I do not feel any satisfaction," I answered honestly. "My son is still my son. However, I am at peace with myself. I defended my dignity, my right to live my final years without being treated as a burden or a resource to exploit. I hope this case serves as a warning to others who might be tempted to abuse the trust and vulnerability of their elderly parents." The journalist took notes, but before she could ask another question, Lily took my hand. "Come on, Grandpa, let's go home." Home. Those words resonated with a new meaning. No longer a place where I was tolerated, but a home where I was respected, loved, and valued. A place where I could be myself. Robert Harris, 73 years old, with my strengths and weaknesses, my history and my hopes for the future. As we walked toward the car, hand in hand with my granddaughter, I realized that sometimes the greatest injustices can lead to the greatest liberations. That burnt dinner, that cruel insult, had been the catalyst that allowed me to take back control of my life, to rediscover my worth and my place in this world. "Ooh, senile, old man," he had called me. That week he discovered that the old lion still had claws, and that justice, although sometimes slow, always ends up catching those who abuse the most vulnerable. It was not the ending I would have wished for my son, but it was the new beginning I needed for myself. And for that, despite all the pain and tears, I could not help but feel grateful. Months passed, and my life found a new rhythm. Every weekend was a celebration with Lily. I taught her American history. I told her stories about Carol. We cooked together, now with much more care, always supervised by Patty. Patty had changed too. She had started the divorce proceedings and had gone back to work as an accountant, a profession she had abandoned when Lily was born. She was rebuilding her life with dignity and determination. Fred remained my confidant, my chess partner on Thursday afternoons in City Park. Sometimes we talked about Alex, about the signs we might have missed, about how money and power can corrupt even those we love. "Do you think you will ever forgive him?" Fred asked me one afternoon while we were playing. "I already have," I replied, surprising even myself. Forgiving does not mean forgetting or excusing what he did. It means freeing myself from the bitterness that would consume me if I held on to it. Alex will have to live with the consequences of his actions. I choose to live in peace. Fred nodded wisely. "You are a stronger man than you think, buddy." One afternoon, 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. It was from Alex from prison. I held it in my hands for a long time before opening it. The letter was brief. "Dad, I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that every day I think about what I did to you, about how I betrayed everything you taught me. The money and power blinded me. I turned into someone not even I recognize. Seeing Lily during the visits, seeing the confusion in her eyes, is my greatest punishment. I hope that when she grows up, you can tell her who I was before I lost my way, not just the monster I became. I love you, Dad. I've always loved you, even though my actions say otherwise. Alex." I folded the letter carefully and kept it in my drawer. Maybe one day I would reply, maybe not. For now, it was enough to know that my son was beginning to face what he had done. Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. At 74 years old, I had learned that old age is not synonymous with uselessness, that dignity has no age, and that sometimes we must fight for what we thought was lost. My routine had become predictable, but comforting. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I visited Gabe at his office to go over the final details of the case. Even though Alex had already been sentenced, there were still matters to resolve. The full restitution of the funds, the liquidation of the properties bought with stolen money, the documentation of every embezzled dollar. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I played chess with Fred in City Park. We would sit under the leafy trees, watching people go by, sharing coffee and pastries we bought at Mr. Charlie's bakery. Do you know what the irony is? I told Fred one Thursday while setting up the board. Alex stole millions from me, but what hurt the most was that he stole my dignity. He made me feel like I was worth nothing. But you got it back, Fred pointed out, moving a piece. You did not just get your money back, Robert. You got your voice back, your autonomy, your place in the world. He was right. The money was important, yes. But the true victory had been taking back control of my life. I was no longer the senile old man who trembled at his son's harsh words. I was Robert Harris, retired teacher, father, grandfather, friend, a man with full rights and full capacity. Weekends with Lily had become the center of my existence. Patty had established a routine. On Saturday mornings, she would pick me up from my apartment, and we would spend the day together. Sometimes we went to the Natural History Museum, other times to the Children's Discovery Museum. Lily was a curious girl, always full of questions about everything. One Saturday, while we were walking through the halls of the museum, Lily asked me something that caught me off guard. "Grandpa, why is my dad in jail?" Patty and I exchanged looks. We knew this moment would come, but we were not entirely prepared. I knelt in front of her, taking her little hands in mine. "Your dad did something very bad, my sweetheart. He took money that did not belong to him and lied about it. When we do bad things, we have to face the consequences. Did he take money from you?" "Yes." "And is that why you were sad?" "Yes, I was very sad, but I'm not so much anymore. I am here with you, and that makes me happy." Lily processed this information, her little face scrunched in concentration. Then she asked, "Do you still love my dad?" The question hit me hard. Did I love Alex? Despite everything, despite the betrayal, the theft, the humiliation? "Yes," I answered honestly. "I will always love him because he is my son. But I am also very disappointed in the choices he made. Love and disappointment can exist at the same time." Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. "I love him too, but I am mad at him for what he did to you." "It is okay to be mad," I said, hugging her. "Your feelings are valid, all of them." Patty joined our hug, and for a moment the three of us stayed like that. A broken family, but healing, learning to navigate this new reality. Visits to Alex in prison were complicated. Patty visited him every 2 weeks with Lily. I had only gone once, 2 months after his sentencing. The state penitentiary was a gloomy place. The gray walls, the bars, the smell of dampness and despair. When Alex walked into the visiting room, I barely recognized him. He had lost weight, his hair was unkempt, his gaze was that of a defeated man. We sat facing each other, separated by a metal table. The silence stretched between us, heavy and thick. Finally, Alex spoke. "Thank you for coming, Dad." Patty insisted. "She said you wanted to talk to me." "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair. "I do not know where to start." "You could start by explaining why," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "You had everything, Alex. A good education, a successful job, a family that loved you. Why?" Alex closed his eyes, tears beginning to roll down his cheeks. It was the first time I had seen him cry since he was a child. "It was never enough," he admitted. "At the bank, all my colleagues had more. Bigger houses, more luxurious cars, more extravagant vacations. I felt inferior. When Mom died and you were left alone, I saw an opportunity. At first, I only took a little, thinking I would put it back, but then it became easier. And before I knew it, I was trapped in a spiral of lies." "And the medications?" I asked, feeling the anger rise again. "Was that part of your opportunity, too?" He looked down in shame. "I needed you to look incompetent. If people believed you were senile, no one would question my control over your finances." The brutal honesty of his confession left me breathless. This was the son I had raised with values, with ethics, with love. How had he turned into this stranger capable of drugging his own father for money? Do you know what hurts me the most? I asked, my voice breaking. It is not the money, Alex. It is that you made me feel useless, a burden. You took away my dignity. I know, he whispered, and I will never be able to repair that. Never. We sat in silence again. Then I asked, what are you going to do with these years in prison? I have been taking classes, reading. There is a rehabilitation program here. I am working with a psychologist to understand how I got to this point. He looked up. I do not expect you to forgive me, Dad. I only hope that someday when I get out of here, you can give me the chance to be a better father to Lily, even if I can no longer be your son. You will always be my son, I said, feeling my own tears. Although right now I do not know if I can have a relationship with you. I need time. Alex nodded, understanding. Time is the only thing I have right now. When I walked out of the prison that day, I felt strangely relieved. Seeing Alex face the consequences of his actions, seeing him accept his responsibility, was a first step toward, I did not know toward what exactly. Reconciliation, healing, time would tell. Gabe had been tireless in his work to recover every dollar that Alex had stolen. The beach house in Miami was sold. The BMW was seized. The investments were liquidated, and every fraudulent transaction was tracked and reversed whenever possible. One day, Gabe called me to his office with extraordinary news. Robert, we have recovered almost everything, he announced, handing me a document. A total of $1.7 million. It actually generated some profit. Ironic, is it not? I looked at the number, so large it seemed unreal. Over $1.7 million. It was more than Carol and I had saved in our entire life together. What am I going to do with so much money? I asked, almost to myself. Whatever you want, Gabe replied with a smile. It is yours, legally recovered. You can invest it, donate it, spend it. For the first time in years, Robert, you have complete control over your life and your resources. That night, in my small apartment downtown, I thought about the possibilities. I could travel, something Carol had always wanted to do, but we could never afford. I could set up a college fund for Lily. I could donate to causes I cared about. But more than any specific plan, what I valued most was the freedom to choose. For 3 years, that freedom had been taken from me. Now I had it back. I made a decision. Part of the money would go into a trust fund for Lily to secure her education and future. Another part I would donate to organizations that help elderly victims of financial abuse, so others would not have to go through what I had gone through. And the rest I would use to live. Not extravagantly, that was not my style, but comfortably with dignity, doing the things I had always wanted to do. Fred applauded my decision when I told him, You are a wise man, buddy. Money is a tool, not a goal. Over time, my relationship with Patty also evolved. She had divorced Alex and was rebuilding her life with courage. She had gone back to school, updating her accounting skills to adapt to new technologies. Robert, she told me one day while we were having coffee in the kitchen of the suburban house, I want to thank you for not blaming me. I should have asked questions. I should have seen the signs. That is in the past, Patty. The important thing is how we move forward. Lily is my priority now, she continued. I want her to grow up understanding the value of honesty, of integrity. I want her to learn from her father's mistakes, not repeat them. She is in good hands, I assured her. You are a good mother. The months turned into a year, then into 2. Lily was growing, transforming from a confused little girl into an older child who asked sharp questions about morality, about choices, about consequences. For her 7th birthday, we threw a party in the backyard of the house. Fred was there, of course, along with some of my old teacher colleagues and Lily's school friends. As I watched my granddaughter play with her friends, blowing out the candles on her cake, making a wish with her eyes squeezed tightly shut, I felt a deep peace. This girl would grow up knowing that her grandfather had fought for his dignity, that he had faced injustice and had prevailed. "What are you thinking about?" Fred asked, walking over with 2 cups of punch. "About how things change," I replied. 3 years ago I was alone in a kitchen, humiliated and defeated. Today I am here, surrounded by people who love me, celebrating my granddaughter's life. You have come a long way, buddy. We all have. That night, after everyone had left, I helped Patty clean up. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from the excitement of the day. "It is still hard for me to believe that all this is real," Patty said while washing dishes. "That you have forgiven us, that we were able to stay in this house, that Lily gets to grow up with her grandfather in her life." "Family is complicated," I said, "but it is also resilient. We can break, but we can also heal." Patty dried her hands and hugged me, something she rarely did. "Thank you, Robert, for everything." Later, as I drove back to my apartment, I thought about Alex, in prison, serving his sentence, working on his redemption. I did not know if we would ever be able to have a normal father and son relationship. Maybe we would never be what we once were. But I had learned that forgiving does not mean forgetting, and that love can coexist with disappointment. Alex would always be my son, but he would also always be the man who betrayed me. Both things could be true simultaneously. What mattered now was the present. Lily laughing in the yard, Patty rebuilding her life with dignity, Fred being the loyal friend he had always been, Gabe looking out for my legal interests, and me, Robert Harris, no longer the senile old man, but a man who had recovered his voice, his autonomy, his place in the world. Justice had been served, but more importantly, dignity had been restored. And that, I thought, as I parked the car, that was what truly mattered. 3 years had passed since that fateful Sunday of the burnt roast. 3 years since the words "senile old man" had changed the course of my life. Now, sitting in the backyard of the house in the suburbs, watching Lily do her homework under the shade of the oak tree, I marveled at how much things had changed. Lily was now 7 years old, and she was a bright and curious girl. Every weekend we had what she called Grandpa's class. I taught her American history, not from the textbooks, but the real stories, the ones that make the past come alive. "Grandpa," she called to me that Saturday, "my teacher says we have to do a project on someone we admire. Can I do it on you?" The question surprised me. "On me? Why on me, my sweetheart?" "Because you are brave," she replied simply. "Mommy told me that when something bad happened to you, you did not give up. You fought for what was right." I walked over and sat next to her on the grass. "Lily, do you know what it truly means to be brave?" She shook her head. "It is not about not having fear. Being brave means being afraid, but acting anyway because you know it is the right thing to do. When I discovered what your dad had done, I was very scared. Scared of being alone. Scared that no one would believe me. Scared of losing my family. But you did it anyway." "Yes, because I knew that if I did not defend my dignity, no one else would. And that is something I want you to always remember. Your value as a person does not depend on what others think of you. It depends on how you see yourself, on the principles you defend." Lily processed this. Then she asked, "Are you still scared sometimes?" "Sometimes, yes. But now I have something I did not have before. I have my voice, and when you have your voice, fear cannot silence you." Patty came out to the yard with a pitcher of iced tea and glasses. She had become a strong, self-assured woman. Her work as an independent accountant was going well, and she had started dating someone, a teacher from Lily's school. It made me glad to see her happy again. "What are you two talking about?" she asked, pouring the tea. "Lily wants to do her school project on me," I said. Patty smiled. "That is an excellent idea. Robert, there is something I wanted to talk to you about." She sat next to us, her expression serious. "Alex is getting out on parole next month. He has served 6 years, and with good behavior, they have reduced the rest of his sentence. The news caught me by surprise, although I knew this day would eventually come. How do you feel about it? I asked. Nervous, she admitted. We are not getting back together, that is clear. The divorce is final. But he is Lily's father, and she has the right to know him, if he is willing to be a good father. I looked at Lily, who was watching us closely. What do you think, my sweetheart? Would you like to see your dad more when he gets out? Lily bit her lower lip, deep in thought. I do not know. Sometimes I miss him, but I am also mad at him for what he did to you, Grandpa. It is okay to feel both things, I assured her. Love and anger can exist together. Your dad made some very big mistakes, but he's been working on being better. When he gets out, you will be able to decide how much you want to see him, and we will respect your decision. Patty looked at me with gratitude. Despite everything Alex had done to me, I had never tried to keep Lily away from her father. That was a decision she would have to make for herself when she was older. A week later, I received a call from Alex. It was the first time we had spoken directly since that visit in prison 2 years ago. Dad. His voice sounded different, more humble, more tired. I get out next Friday. I was wondering if you would be willing to see me. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect myself from the pain of seeing him again. But another part, the part that still remembered the boy he had been, the son I had loved, needed that closure. Okay, I finally said. Where? At the house, if you do not mind. I would like to see the place where I grew up one more time. We agreed to meet the following Sunday. Patty and Lily would be there too, creating a neutral environment, a safety net for everyone. Fred insisted on accompanying me. You do not have to do this alone, buddy. I know, but I think I need to do it. For me, and also for Alex. For Lily. Sunday arrived faster than I expected. Patty prepared coffee and pastries, creating a domestic normalcy that felt surreal given the circumstances. When Alex arrived, I barely recognized him. The arrogant, well-dressed man he used to be had disappeared. In his place was someone thinner, with premature gray hair, with a humility in his posture that I had never seen before. Lily ran toward him, and he hugged her, tears rolling down his cheeks. My little girl, look how much you have grown. Dad, Lily said, her voice small, I missed you. I missed you too, my love, every single day. Finally, Alex turned to me. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then, to my surprise, he knelt in front of me. Dad, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know that what I did to you was unforgivable. But I need you to know that these 6 years have changed me. I have had a lot of time to think about the man I was, about the damage I caused, especially to you. Get up, Alex, I said softly. You do not need to kneel before me. He stood up, wiping away his tears. In prison, I took ethics courses. I worked with a psychologist. I understood that money, that status, had blinded me. I had become everything you taught me not to be. And now? I asked. What are you going to do now? I'm going to work in an auto repair shop. A friend from prison got me the job. It is not glamorous, but it is honest work. I'm going to live in a small apartment on the south side. I am going to rebuild my life from scratch, the right way this time. Patty intervened. We have agreed that he can see Lily on Sunday afternoons, here in a neutral environment, until she feels comfortable with longer visits. I nodded. That seems reasonable to me. We spent the next hour talking carefully as if walking on broken glass. Alex told me about his years in prison, about the men he had met, about the lessons he had learned. I met a man there. He said he had been locked up for fraud, just like me. He told me something I will never forget. Character is not measured by what you do when everyone is watching, but by what you do when no one can see you except yourself. It is true, I agreed. For years, when no one was watching me except myself, I chose dishonesty. Greed. Now, I want that. When Lily thinks of me, she thinks of a man who made terrible mistakes, but worked hard to make amends for them. Lily, who had been playing with her dolls, walked over. Dad, can I ask you something? Whatever you want, my love. Why did you hurt Grandpa? because I was selfish and greedy. I wanted things I did not need, and I lost sight of what truly mattered, the people I loved. I hurt the most important man in my life, the man who gave me everything. Are you sorry? More than words can express. Okay, Lily said simply. Grandpa says we all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them. Alex looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. I gave a slight nod. Yes, that was what I had taught Lily. Yes, that was what I believed. When Alex left that afternoon, I felt strangely at peace. It did not mean that everything was forgiven or forgotten. The wounds he had caused were deep and would take years to heal completely, if they ever did. But it meant we could coexist, that Lily could have her father in her life, that maybe someday Alex and I could have some kind of relationship again. That night, Fred came to visit me at my apartment. We shared a glass of bourbon, as we had done so many times over the years. How do you feel after seeing him? He asked. Tired, I admitted, but also relieved. Seeing him accept responsibility, seeing him genuinely remorseful, does not erase what he did, but it does close a chapter. You are a better man than I am, buddy. I do not know if I could have been so generous. It is not generosity, I said. It is survival. Holding a grudge would only hurt myself. Letting it go, allowing him to try to redeem himself, that sets me free. Fred raised his glass. To freedom, then. To freedom, I repeated. As I drank, I thought about the entire journey. From that scared and humiliated old man in a smoke-filled kitchen, to this man who had recovered not just his money, but something much more valuable, his dignity, his voice, his place in the world. Justice had been served. Healing was in progress, and the future, for the first time in years, seemed full of possibilities. 6 months after Alex's release, my life had found a rhythm I never imagined possible. At 75 years old, I finally understood what it meant to live fully, not just exist. I had made important decisions about my future. With part of the recovered money, I established the Carol Harris Foundation in honor of my late wife. The foundation was dedicated to helping elderly victims of financial abuse, providing them with free legal assistance and emotional support. Gabe had become the legal director of the foundation, working pro bono on cases similar to mine. Every month, we helped 3 or 4 families recover their dignity and their resources. Robert, Gabe had told me during the foundation's inauguration, what started as your personal tragedy has become hope for hundreds of people. That is a powerful legacy. I had also started giving talks at community centers and nursing homes, sharing my story. It was not easy to speak publicly about my son's betrayal, about my humiliation, about the lost years, but every time I saw the understanding in the eyes of other seniors, I knew it was worth it. One afternoon, after a talk at a senior day center downtown, a woman in her 70s approached me. Mr. Harris, she said with tears in her eyes, my daughter manages all my money. She says it is for my own good, but she never lets me see the bank statements. After listening to you today, I think something is not right. I gave her Gabe's card. Call him. It is not too late to take back control of your life. Weeks later, Gabe informed me that the woman had discovered her daughter had embezzled over $50,000. Thanks to the foundation, she was taking legal action. You saved her life, Gabe told me. No, I replied. I gave her the tools to save herself. There is a difference. My relationship with Lily continued to be the center of my world. She was now 8 years old, and her bright personality blossomed every day. On Sundays, we still had our grandpa's classes, but now they also included other children from the neighborhood. I had become, without planning it, a sort of community teacher, teaching American history to small groups of kids in the backyard of the house in the suburbs. Patty had made this official, setting up Grandpa Robert's History Club, which met every Saturday. Do you know what the most beautiful part of this is? Patty told me one day while we watched the kids reenact the American Revolution with makeshift costumes. Alex tried to make you feel useless, worthless. But look at what you are doing now. You are shaping young minds, making a real difference." She was right. The irony did not escape me. The man who had called me a senile old man had, inadvertently, awakened in me a renewed purpose. My relationship with Alex remained complicated, but it was slowly improving. He kept his word. He worked honestly at the auto repair shop, lived modestly, and spent every Sunday with Lily. He never tried to justify what he had done. He never asked for more than I was willing to give. One Sunday, after dropping Lily back off at the house, Alex asked to speak with me alone. We walked through the suburban streets, passing by the grocery store, the park, all the places where he had grown up. "Dad," he began, "I know we can never go back to what we were. I know I lost that right. But I want you to know that every day I think about the man you were to me when I was a child, about the lessons you taught me, and I wonder how I could have forgotten them so completely. Money and power can blind anyone," I said. "The important thing is that you see clearly now." "Last week," he continued, "a customer at the shop offered me $100 extra if I did not report a certain job on the books. Years ago, I would have taken that money without a second thought. And now I said no, because every dollar I earn honestly brings me closer to being the man I want Lily to see, the man you raised." I stopped, truly looking at him for the first time in years. I did not see the man who had betrayed me, but the boy he had been, and the man he was fighting to be. "I am proud of you," I said, and I meant it sincerely. Not for who you were, or even for who you are now. I am proud of the effort you are making to change. Alex broke down, hugging me in the middle of the street. Several minutes passed before he could speak. "Thank you, Dad. Those words mean more than you can imagine." When I returned to my apartment that night, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights stretch out before me. I thought about the entire journey, about all the people who had been part of this trip. Carol, whose death had triggered all of this. I wondered if she would be proud of the man I had become after losing her. I think she would. Fred, my tireless friend, who had been by my side every step of the way. Without him, I would probably still be in that small suburban room, drugged and controlled. Gabe, who had fought for my justice with the same passion as if it were his own cause. Patty, who had found the strength to rebuild her life and create a loving environment for Lily. And Lily, my granddaughter, the reason why all of this had been worth it. She would grow up knowing that her grandfather had fought for his dignity, that justice was possible, that it is never too late to stand up for what is right. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Fred. "Are you watching the news?" he asked excitedly. "No. Why?" "Turn it on. Channel 11. I turned on the television, and there it was. A report on the Carol Harris Foundation. They showed footage of our office, interviews with people we had helped, and then my face appeared on the screen. It was a recording of a talk I had given the week before. I heard myself speak about my experience, about the importance of dignity in old age, about not allowing anyone to make you feel invisible or worthless. "We, the elderly, are not a burden," my image on the television said. "We are repositories of wisdom, experience, and love. We deserve respect, not because we are old, but because we are human beings with inalienable rights." The reporter closed the segment saying, "Mr. Robert Harris, a man who turned his personal tragedy into a movement to protect the most vulnerable, a true everyday hero." I turned off the television, feeling a mix of pride and humility. I did not feel like a hero. I felt like a man who had done what was necessary to survive, to recover his dignity. But if my story could inspire others, if it could prevent other families from going through what mine had gone through, then every moment of pain had been worth it. That night, I wrote in my diary. It was something I had started doing in therapy and had continued as a way to process everything I had lived through. Today is November 15th, 2026, 4 years have passed since the Sunday of the burnt roast, since my son called me a senile old man and my world collapsed. But that collapse was also a liberation. It forced me to see truths I had been avoiding, to defend my worth when no one else would. I have learned that dignity is not something others can take away from you unless you allow it. That old age is not synonymous with uselessness, that it is never too late to start over. I have learned that family is complicated, that love and disappointment can coexist, that forgiveness is possible without forgetting. I have learned that justice, although slow, is real, that the truth matters, that bravery is not the absence of fear, but taking action despite the fear. More importantly, I have learned that my worth does not depend on what I can do or how much money I have. My worth is inherent because I am a human being, because I have lived, loved, and fought. Carol, wherever you are, I hope you are proud. I took the pain of your departure and turned it into something meaningful. Our story continues, through Lily, through the foundation that bears your name, through every life we touch. Alex is finding his way back to humanity. I do not know if our relationship will ever be what it was, but I can live with that uncertainty. At 75 years old, I am finally living, not just existing, and that, more than any amount of recovered money, more than any court sentence, is the true victory. I am Robert Harris. I am a teacher, a father, a grandfather, a friend, an activist. I am a man who was knocked down but stood back up, who was silenced but found his voice, who was called senile but proved his capability. And my message to anyone who feels invisible, discarded, or worthless: you matter. Your voice matters. Your dignity is unbreakable unless you surrender it. It is never too late to stand up for what is right. It is never too late to start over. Justice may be delayed, but it arrives. And when it does, restored dignity is sweeter than any victory one could have imagined. I closed the diary and looked out the window one last time. Tomorrow would be another day full of possibilities. I had a foundation meeting in the morning, history class in the afternoon, and dinner with Fred at night. A full, rich, meaningful life. A life with dignity. And that, I thought, as I turned off the light, that was all any man could ask for. The senile old man had had the last word after all, and that word was dignity.